On the morning of the second meteor, Cora's 1989 Toyota Camry gave up the ghost for good. The car was a manual transmission with a stick shift its previous owner had wrapped in duct tape years ago. A time bomb, the color of expired baby food that should have gone off sooner than it did. At $800, she had paid more for it than it was worth, but back then she had been a freshman in college and desperate for a car. In the 2 years since, she'd grown accustomed to the ever-loudening squealing of the fan belt, but on this morning, after she put her key in the ignition and the engine turned, the squealing turned into a hostile screech. A disheartening thunk-thunk-thunk followed, then a snap, then an angry whir, all before she could react. But by the time she turned off the ignition, it was clear that the car, her first and only car, was dead forever. And she was already late for work. As the Camry went into its final death throes, Demi, who was locking the front door on her way to work, froze mid-motion as she beheld the scene, wearing an expression of disappointment, but not surprise. Cora's feeling of horror that this was even happening quickly hopped to embarrassment before settling onto her old standby. Numbness. She got out of the car, with no choice but to leave it on the street despite it being street cleaning day, approached her mother, and asked, "Can you give me a ride to work?" Demi looked at her like she had just lost their house in a drunken bet. "Sure." It was the last word she said to Cora for about half an hour. In short order, Cora was suffering the indignity of her mother driving her to work through the vehicular sludge of the 110. In any other circumstances, Demi would have told Cora she was shit out of luck, that she should have gotten the car fixed months ago, and that she could find her own damn way up to downtown LA. But it had been through PMT, the temp agency Demi worked for, that Cora had her temp job. And it had been Demi who had vouched for her. And so, here they were, crawling under the 105, Demi sacrificing her own punctuality for her negligent daughter's. "What happened to that $200 I loaned you?" asked Demi just after they passed Rosecrans, her anger now cooled enough that she was capable of speech. "You were supposed to replace the belt and get your hair done, and you have done neither." Cora resisted the urge to pull her hair behind her ears, as though that would hide her mess of a dye job. She'd bleached it blonde several months ago before she'd dropped out of college, but about 6 inches of her natural wet hay hair color had grown in since. "I had to use it on gas," lied Cora, keeping her gaze on the passenger side mirror. "And I had another credit card bill I needed to pay off." The truth was, she had used that money on a Nico Case concert, her 3rd this year. But Demi didn't need to know that. "Sure you did," said Demi. "After today, you take the bus." Cora did not retort or offer excuses. She knew it was absolutely on her that she had not fixed the car. The fan belt was just the last in a long line of events that only tightened the spiral of powerlessness that was coming to define her existence, and by this point, she was getting used to it. Trying to exert some control over her life was an exercise in futility, so why bother? A good concert was the one place she could genuinely lose herself, have an out-of-body experience, and detach from the deteriorating morass that was her life. And if it meant getting bitched at by her mother and an indefinite period with no car, then oh well. That's life.